Okay, Landry Avenue is here.
Yeah, that's
okay.
yeah.
Right. So there's woods on this side of this open area, right?
Yes,
And then there's woods on both sides of Landry Avenue, right?
correct.
Okay. And then there's woods down here.
Yes,
So there's lots of woods in this general part of North Attleboro, right?
yes,
But the specific area where Mr. Lloyd's body was found, this is not a wooded area, right?
no,
This is an open area, correct?
correct.
And it's an open area with Deitch Boulevard at one end and Landry Avenue at the other, right?
Yes.
And sir, you mentioned there are some mounds of dirt. There were some mounds of dirt in the area, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm showing you what's in evidence as Exhibit 40D. Is that big enough?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And does that show the mounds of dirt in the area that existed at the time?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And by the way, have you been to that area a number of times since June 17, 2013?
Yes.
Okay. What's the most recent time you were there?
2 days ago or yesterday?
Okay. And would you agree with me, sir, that it looks, other than the snow on the ground, the topography, the landscape looks quite a bit different than it did back on June 17, 2013?
Yes, sir.
There are some really giant mounds of something there now, which were not there back then, right?
Right.
Okay,
Those are mainly back towards Landry Ave, but yes.
okay. But those giant mounds were not there back on June 17, 2013?
Well, there are some mounds, but not that size, no.
Right, okay. So if, say, this jury were to be there tomorrow and would see at that same location, what they would be looking at would look somewhat different than how it looked on June 17, 2013, correct?
Yes.
And let me show you what's been marked as Exhibit 37, which that's an aerial photograph. See if I can make this smaller. Okay. You testified about this aerial photograph on direct examination, Captain?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And am I correct that this area I'm pointing to, this is the area we're talking about at Corliss Landing where Mr. Lloyd's body was discovered?
Yeah, right around that area.
This area here in general, okay. And as we discussed, there's woods over here, right?
Yes, sir.
And there's woods over here.
Yes.
And there's woods over here.
Yes.
And there's woods over here.
Yes.
All right. And I think you just, so let me just take a route. This, where my pen is going, that's still John Deitch Boulevard, right?
John Deitch, yes.
John Deitch, okay? And John Deitch turns down this way, right?
Yes, sir.
And it's still John Deitch Boulevard. And then this is the intersection of John Deitch Boulevard and Landry Avenue, right?
That's correct.
Okay. So if you took a left here, you'd head down Landry, back, and this is the other end of that same open area you've been talking about,
Yes.
right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then I think you said if you took a right at this corner, this is Homeward Lane, right?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. and if you went down Homeward Lane and took a left, this street is Ronald C. Meyer Drive?
Yes.
Okay. And this is where Aaron Hernandez, where his house is, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, I think you told us that other than being there at the scene that night for 3 hours, you've done some other things in this investigation, right?
Yes.
Okay. And am I correct that one of the things that you did, Captain, is that you interviewed a witness named David Swithers at the North Attleboro Police Station on June 21st, 2013?
Yes.
Okay. And Mr. Swithers was one of the individuals. He was the owner of the business where the young man who found Mr. Lloyd's body, Matthew Kent, knocked on the door, and Mr. Swithers responded, right?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Okay. And that interview was on, it was taped, right? It was videotaped?
Yes.
Okay. And am I correct that during the course of that interview on June 21st, 2013, Mr. Swithers told you that lots of people walk and jog through that area?
Yes, I think he did.
Okay. And did he also tell you that one of the, and this is his word, not mine, one of the girls who works for me said that she saw a black SUV parked up in there at the end of the dirt road where the pavement ends on June 17th?
He did. I don't think he said that exact, somewhere near the pavement, I think he said.
Okay, well, tell us
I'm
to
not
the
sure.
best of your memory, sir, what David Swithers told you on that subject during that interview.
Yeah, he actually drew it's on videotape, but he drew a little map for me, or for himself, and he said that he pointed out to the area where, I guess you would call it the paved area, as you enter from John Deach to Corliss Landing, there's still a paved area there. And in his words, and he said that he had heard that somebody he works with saw an SUV there sometime after 5 o'clock on that day,
Okay.
June 17th.
And did he also tell you, quote, "I wouldn't be surprised if people walked and jogged through there during the day"?
I don't remember that, actually, no. He did say there were walkers and joggers, but I don't remember him saying that day.
Do you remember him telling you a lot of people walk and jog through that dirt trail?
Yes, yep.
And one of the things you did in this investigation was to participate in a search at Aaron Hernandez's home on the evening of June 22nd, 2013, right?
I was there for the search as a supervisor, yes.
Okay, so you supervised the search?
Among other people, yes.
Okay. And was that your job that night, was to basically direct other officers what to do?
No, the direction was under the district attorney's office, as the statute states, but we were there as a supervisor from North Attleboro. There was a supervisor from the state police.
So what were your specific responsibilities during that search, sir?
To stay with the family a little bit in the kitchen area, and if they needed anything, we could help them get it. At the same time, we had to answer any questions that they might have, any questions the officers might have, and I think at one point, one of us even took a phone call from one of Mr. Hernandez's attorneys.
So when you say stay with the family in the kitchen area, you mean that Mr. Hernandez, Aaron Hernandez, his fiancée Cheyenne Jenkins, and their infant daughter were essentially confined to the kitchen area while the officers searched the rest of the house? Is that what you're telling us?
Yeah, I think there was someone else too, and then when we had to search that area, we had to move them to another area to make them comfortable.
And you told us on direct examination that you also went to Florida in the course of this investigation, right?
Yes, sir.
How many times did you go to Florida?
One time, I think I was there for about 5 days.
Okay. And that was in late June and early July of
June 20
2013?
June 28th, I believe, so.
Okay. And did you go down there yourself or with somebody else?
I went down there and met a state trooper that was already down there.
That's Trooper Shervin?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And while you were down there, you interviewed some witnesses?
We did.
Okay. And while you were down there, am I correct that you arranged with the local police, you asked them to conduct a scuba dive search of a lake behind the house of Ernest Wallace's mother, right?
No. Ernest Wallace's mother lived in Miramar, Florida. We arranged to have a lake searched behind Orinthia Wallace's house, which is in Miami Gardens.
And who is Orinthia Wallace?
That's Ernest Wallace's sister.
I apologize. Okay. So you asked the local police to conduct a scuba diving search of a lake behind the home of Ernest Wallace's sister.
Yes, that was conducted, unfortunately, after we already came back to Massachusetts, but they did.
But you asked them to do it, right?
Yes, yes.
And specifically, you told them you were looking for a .45 caliber handgun, right?
Yes.
Okay. And they conducted that search on July 5th, 2013?
That sounds about right, yes.
Okay. Did they find anything?
No.
Can I have a moment, Your Honor, please? Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, you refer-
Sir, what caused you to go to Florida?
Initially, it was to escort Ernest Wallace, who'd been arrested down in Florida, one of the co-defendants. Initially, it was to escort him back to Massachusetts.
Okay. And while you were down there, did you engage in or take certain action to further the investigation?
Yes.
And at the time you were down there, had you any knowledge about a particular weapon being used in the homicide of Odin Lloyd?
Well, we knew it was a gun. I'm not sure if at that time we knew it was a .45 or not.
Okay. And do you recall, Mr. Sultan asked you a few minutes ago that you had requested the police to conduct a search of a pond or lake area behind the home of Ernest Wallace's sister?
Yes, she's right on the line of Miami Gardens in the city of Miami, so it took a little effort, but we got the two police departments to coordinate with each other, the search.
Okay. But when he asked you, he indicated that you had asked for a search for a .45 weapon. Does that refresh your memory as to whether you knew at that time that it was a .45 that you were looking for?
I don't know that we knew it was a .45. I just knew it was, we were looking for a gun.
Okay. And in fact, did you later learn, the shell casings that you observed, did you later learn what caliber they were?
Yes.
What was that?
.45.
And you've been involved in the investigation from the beginning?
Yes.
Was a .45 caliber firearm ever located?
No.
Now, when you referred to the ME's office, what does ME stand for?
Medical examiner.
Okay. And are there certain protocols that you know of in terms of when arriving at a scene of a unattended death or a suspicious death?
Yes, you're mandated by statute to notify the medical examiner's office and the district attorney's office.
Okay.
I believe it's Chapter 38.
Okay. And was that done in this case?
Yes, immediately.
And in terms of the time, Mr. Sultan asked you about the time that it took before either processing the scene or the body that was ultimately removed. Did you have any control over that?
No, sir.
Whose discretion to remove the body, who makes that judgment?
That's the medical examiner's office, sir.
Now, with regards to, Mr. Sultan asked you about what actions you took at the scene when you first arrived and found the body of Odin Lloyd. And he indicated to you, well, something about things being normal, is that right? Under the normal circumstances.
I don't remember that.
Oh, okay. Do you, is there a protocol with regards to coming upon a scene where there's a body that whether the death is unattended or appears to be suspicious?
Yes.
Okay. And what is the normal protocol?
Again, you notify the medical examiner's office, you notify the district attorney's office. Yes.
Okay. And what is the normal protocol?
Again, you notify the medical examiner's office, you notify the district attorney's office, take pictures of the scene, and then cordon off the scene as we did, and set up a log of people entering, and then wait for the state police and district attorney's office to arrive.
Okay. And with the state police, are there units of the state police that respond to such situations?
Yeah, the state police have a dedicated unit to homicides, and that's the unit that arrived.
Okay. And are you familiar with what's known as crime scene or crime scene service section of the state police?
Yes.
Okay. And you referred in the course of your testimony to crime scene. Is that the same or different?
Same, I'm sorry?
When Mr. Sultan was asking you questions about, and you responded that crime scene hadn't arrived, are you
that's the
referring to
same.
that unit?
Yes.
Now, what is your first obligation in terms of, in relation to preserving a scene? What do you try to do?
We try to preserve the evidence as best we can and keep the evidence and the integrity of the scene intact.
Okay. Did you attempt to do that upon your initial arrival at the scene at behind Corliss Landing?
Yes.
Did anything interfere with that, your efforts to do that?
Yes.
What was that?
The storm that came in.
Did you have any control over that?
No.
Did you know when that was going to arrive?
No, not exactly, no.
When did you first see signs that a storm, or even had any knowledge that a storm might arrive?
We had knowledge very early that we were being told there was a thunderstorm warning, and then shortly thereafter we could literally see the clouds coming in and the wind blowing the trees. So
And so what efforts did you take to preserve the scene?
we wanted to, as quickly as possible, preserve the scene. We wanted to secure the rounds, secure the towel, the blunt, the hat.
Did you make efforts to get items that you could use for preserving the scene?
Yeah, while that was going on, we also made an effort to get the tarps and the canopies or tents.
And how many were delivered?
I believe 2 tents and 2 or 3 tarps.
Okay.
Some of them small.
And did you use those?
Yes.
Did you have any extras that you could use?
Just the ones that you saw in the pictures.
Okay. So were any canopies or tarps delivered that you ended up not using?
No.
With regard to your, the questioning about an area that you could have enlarged, were you limited to the size of your tarps, to the area you could actually cover?
Right.
And when Mr. Sultan had asked you about your concerns, what concerns did you have if rain, water, running water on the items that were actually at the scene when you arrived?
Well, we knew that if we had left them as they were, then those items would not be preserved well enough. The possibility of getting wet, the possibility of being embedded in mud, or being washed away.
Okay. So I'm going to show you first the photograph and ask you if you recognize it.
Yes.
What do you recognize that to be?
That is the tarp we placed over, I believe, the body of Owen Lloyd.
And how was that secured?
We put rocks around it to make sure it didn't blow away.
And at some later, is this before or after the canopy was also used to attempt to cover that body?
This is before.
Okay. And then just while I'm here, this next one's previously been marked as 49. You recognize that. You were shown a few minutes of that.
Yes.
A few minutes ago. Let me just mark this one first, if I could. Your Honor, I would offer this as the next exhibit.
No objection.
Marked as next exhibit. Exhibit 51.
If I could use the overhead. Your Honor. I'm starting to place 51 view overhead. Does that show the tarp over the body of Odin Lloyd?
Yes, it does.
And that was done sometime before the rain?
Yes, definitely.
Now, just directing your attention, well, let me ask you this first. You indicated earlier there were items, 2 shell casings that were found near the body.
Yes.
And were they in a certain location close to the body?
Yes.
Can you see that area? First of all, just describe the area that they were in.
Well, 2 of them were in a ditch, and 1 was outside of the ditch.
Can you see that area that you're referring to as a ditch?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, just point to it, please. Okay. I'm sorry, where are you pointing?
Right over here?
Okay. Well, let me just show you photo, Exhibit 49 that Mr. Sultan had just asked you some questions about. Directing your attention down to the right corner here, do you recall that, or do you remember seeing this area?
Yes.
Okay. Do you recall this being the area, or in close proximity to the area where you saw those shell casings?
Yes.
Did you attempt to stretch the tarp over that area?
Well, we couldn't cover the body in that area at the same time, so,
And there was some effort made to cover that area, is that true?
yes.
Objection. Leading.
Okay. I'm sorry.
Yes, that is true.
Just directing your attention here, what is this area right at this corner in relation to those other shell casings, the 2 shell casings you saw?
Right, so his head, the victim's head was in this area here. I'm not sure what you're asking me, but
Okay, if I could just have a moment, please. I'm just going to put up on the screen 39B. Recognize that?
yes.
And what do you recognize that to be?
That's the ditch where there were 2 shell casings?
39C, you remember, you recognize this?
Yes.
Did you make a marking as to where that ditch was?
Yes.
Where's that?
Right here?
And you circled with a certain color?
Red.
Now I'm going to show you this. Does that assist you in orienting you to the location where you saw those 2 shell casings?
Yes. I believe it was right here in this ditch.
Okay, and if you just use your finger so I can
I'm sorry.
show it to the jury. You're indicating over here.
Yes.
Okay. When you first saw the shell casings, I'm sorry, let me go back to 39C. The area, the surface area of that ground was wet or dry?
Dry.
And later on, the tarp was removed from the body of Odin Lloyd.
Yes.
What was the condition of it at that time?
The area around Odin Lloyd was dry because of the tarp, and the area around the tarp was wet.
Okay. And what about the area where those shell casings that you had observed earlier? What was its condition?
It had filled with dirt, mud, and water.
Did you had some concern about that?
Yes.
Prior to the rain?
Yes, we did.
Those other items you described,
And water.
did you had some concern about that?
Yes.
Prior to the rain?
Yes, we did.
Those other items, you described a hat and a towel and the blunt, cigarette. What,
Yes.
if any, concerns did you have about the effect of water on those?
The same concerns. We felt as though it could affect the DNA trace evidence that we might find, or any kind of evidence that might be on them.
Now, you were asked questions about who made the decision to start picking up items, is that right?
That's correct.
And how many people did you speak to before that decision was made?
Four, maybe five.
Okay, and identify from what units or organizations or agencies they were from.
Myself, the chief, 2 supervisors from the state police unit, homicide unit, and discussions with Detective Rigor.
Now, when you're involved in a homicide investigation, are you making decisions yourself?
No.
Okay. Tell us how are decisions made?
These decisions are made jointly. We have a lot of people involved in it, obviously, and everyone comes together and makes certain decisions, such as picking up evidence, preserving evidence. More specifically, the district attorney's office will make the final decision, but in this case, the state police and the North Attleboro Police work jointly. So,
Okay. And when we talk about, you describe the recovery of certain items at that scene by certain individuals, is that right?
yes.
And this being before the rain. What efforts were made to preserve the integrity of those items before they were recovered?
I'm sorry?
Sure. Did you see how they were recovered?
Yes.
And describe that.
Well, Detective Rigor put on some latex gloves. I believe, although I'm not 100% sure, that Lieutenant Marco also had latex gloves on. And Detective Rigor would pick up the rounds one at a time. I think he placed the 2 rounds that were in the ditch in the same bag, and all other rounds that were picked up, I believe, were placed in separate bags. The blunt was placed in a separate bag also. So.
And let me just ask you, who was holding the bags when he was doing this?
Lieutenant DeMarco.
Was he making any type of contact or touching them himself?
No.
What about the blunt?
Again, that was picked up by Detective Riggi and placed in a brown bag.
Okay. And how about the hat
Same thing.
and towel?
Same thing. I think Detective Elliott picked up the towel though,
Okay. And in terms of...
and he had gloves on.
Okay. Now, was the scene preserved to the extent that there was photographic or photographs taken?
Yes, sir. There was photographs taken before anything was picked up. There was photographs taken before the rain came, but everything was covered, and there was photographs taken after the rain came and everything was uncovered.
Okay. And the photographs that you were shown before showed the Illinois body and the hat, what was said in the towel. Does that fairly and accurately reflect? I'm referring to Exhibit 3C.
I'm going to ask you not to go back over medicine of it unless there's something that's responding to something on across.
When, do you know whether, when you were asked about who was there when items were recovered, do you know whether anybody of all those names that Mr. Sultan asked you about, do you know whether anybody from Crime Scene Services had yet arrived on the scene?
As far as the rounds, the towel, and the hat and the blunt, I don't believe anyone from Crime Scene Services had arrived, but I'm not 100% sure.
Is there something that would assist your memory?
Yeah, the log.
May I approach your honor? So I'm just going to have you look at this and just read it to yourself.
Okay. Okay.
Does that refresh your memory as to when the first person from Crime Scene Services arrived on the scene?
Yes.
And who was that, sir?
Detective Bennett.
And what time did he arrive?
I believe that said 1853, which is 6:53.
And what time did you tell us it began to rain?
6:50.
So would that be before or after he arrived?
That would be, it began to rain before he arrived.
Okay. Now, is there a protocol with regard to how the scene is handled by whom the scene would be then processed by?
Yes, by Crime Scene Services.
Did you do anything else other than the collection of those items? Did you do anything else to disturb that scene prior to crime scene arriving?
No, sir.
Let me ask you about this conversation with Mr. Swithers. You remember that discussion?
Yes, sir.
When was that?
It was on June 21st, so it was about 4 or 5 days after the discovery of the body.
Okay. Now, during that 4 or 5 days, did you have, just yes or no, had you learned other things about the investigation at the time of your conversation with him?
Yes.
And when you spoke to him, Mr. Sultan asked you to recall whether he said about a lot of people, lots of people walk or jog in that area?
Yes.
Do you know whether he was telling you that from his own knowledge or from what he had heard?
I believe he said it's what he heard.
And with regard to the black SUV, did he also tell you whether that was from his own knowledge or from what he had heard?
What he had heard.
And in fairness to that conversation, was there a particular context about this other person who said they saw an SUV?
Yes, Mr. Swithers was trying to do the right thing. Obviously, he was a great witness, but he was...
I'm going to strike
Okay.
that comment.
Just,
sorry, Your Honor.
just in the, would you describe him as, at that time, just as cooperative?
Cooperative, yes.
Okay. But was there a context of what he was telling you about somebody else making a statement to him?
Yes,
Okay. And what was the context of what he was telling you?
that the body had been dropped there.
Okay. And did he describe his opinion about when he thought it might have been dropped there, in terms of time?
His words were very recently.
Okay. And did he then, when he referred to this SUV, did he indicate when this other person said they saw it before the discovery of the body?
Yes, just after 5 p.m.,
5 p.m. on what date?
Monday the 17th, the day
Okay.
we found the body.
And you arrived at what time, sir?
5:30.
Okay. And did you have, based on your own personal knowledge, in terms of you're going to the body, feeling for a pulse, trying to move his arm, did you have your own determination of what stage of rigor mortis he was in?
He was in full rigor mortis, yes, sir.
And was that consistent or inconsistent with the suggestion that the body had been dumped there or dropped there?
That was inconsistent.
Okay. Did you take and was there other information that affected your judgment on whether you should further investigate that or not further investigate it?
Yes, the shell casings that were found at the scene.
Okay. And so as a result, did you do anything further with regards to that?
No.
That SUV, did Mr. Swithers tell you what this other person, it was an unknown person, is that right?
That's right.
Did he give you information about what this SUV was doing at around 5 o'clock?
He said parked.
And did he tell you where it was parked?
He did.
And where did he describe that being parked?
The area that he described and pointed to was the, so when you come off of John Deach, there's the paved area that goes to the parking lot. He pointed to that area right there, the pavement.
You were familiar with that area?
Very familiar, yes.
When you first arrived at the scene and actually ultimately went to the body, did you park in that area?
No.
Okay, where did you park?
I parked past the pavement area onto the gravel.
So were you closer or further away from where this now SUV was described as being parked?
I was closer to the body.
Okay. From where you parked, were you able to see the body?
No.
Did he describe any other, in this conversation, did he describe anything else suspicious about this parked vehicle?
No.
Excuse me, if I could have a moment, Your Honor. And, sir, Mr. Sultan had asked you about certain woods in the area.
Yes.
And do you recall the description that you had made earlier when I was asking you questions about where the woods were located?
Yes.
And where were the woods located?
They're located to the left of Collis Landing and to the right just prior to Needle Tech.
Okay. Yeah. If I could approach your arm. And I'm just going to show you that photograph and ask you if you recognize it.
Right.
And does that show woods in that area?
Yes.
Okay, and where is that?
Well, this is the area of Corliss Landing, or the construction area near Corliss Landing where the body was found. This is Corliss Landing right here. There are trees and woods preventing anyone from Corliss Landing to see in that area. There are trees and woods along the west side of the property, a little bit along Landry Ave on that side and across the street, and the entire length of the east side of that property where Needle Tech is.
Okay, and Needle Tech is shown on this?
Needle Tech is shown on this, yes.
Your Honor, Alfred, this is the next exhibit, please.
Good luck, it's the next exhibit.
Your Honor, if I can publish this.
No.
Sir, I'm placing 52 on the overhead. If you just point out the woods that you were just describing in this photograph.
Sure. These the
And, sorry. Okay. I'll just back here.
So this is the way you would enter into the property. This is Corliss Landing over here. This is their back parking lot. There is a dumpster right here. And you can see there's a tree line going across from west to east.
Okay, and you're, west, you're indicating from here?
Yes, sir.
East there?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then where else?
And then along the outer east side of the construction area, there's a
Okay.
tree line. Along Landry Ave, you can see a tree line to a certain point.
Right?
And then it picks up again over here and across along the entire west side of the property. There's these trees, and here's Needle Tech right here.
You're indicating right here?
Yes, sir.
Now, sir, you were also asked questions about who was there and the number of people that was there, is that right?
Yes.
And let me just ask you to tell us who was there, how many people were there prior to when you observed those coverings placed over the body, the tire track, and those footwear impressions?
Prior to that,
Yes, sir.
there was Officer Zimmer, Officer Mchuan, Officer Grimm, myself, Detective Rigor, Lieutenant DeMarco, Detective Elliott. And maybe Chief Riley, but I'm not sure about that.
Okay. And so with regard to placing a 48 on the overhead. This photograph here, that depicts this area in here, is that right?
Yes.
And you've described the individuals who were present on the scene prior, or that were present before these items were covered, is that right?
Yes.
Now, anybody else, again, in that vicinity, down in this area here, below the feet of Odin Lloyd, prior to those things covered? Is there anyone that you haven't indicated?
Out of that group that I mentioned, no, there definitely was not.
Now, obviously, this officer, I think Mr. Sultan asked you, do you know who he is?
That's a state trooper.
Okay. But at this point now, that area, the scene, the areas that were covered were covered. People were now moving about around the body. Is that true?
Right.
And would you, and at that time, was it before or after the rain, that last photo I showed you, number 48?
That was after.
Okay. Back to approaching it. Sir, I'm just going to have you look at this photograph, see if you recognize it.
Yes.
Okay. Now, Mr. Sultan had asked you some questions about another canopy that was on the scene, is that right?
Right.
Can you see a part of that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And does this fairly and accurately show its relation to those other items you've already described?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, I'd offer this as the next exhibit.
Okay.
Go back to the next exhibit.
Number 53.
Mike. Start placing number 53 now on the overhead. And just- Can you see that other canopy?
Yes, sir.
Okay, just point to it, please, if you would. You're indicating over here.
Yes.
Okay. Now, in relation, can you see where the body of Odin Lloyd is?
Yes.
And just point to that, under that canopy.
Yes, sir.
And in relation to where his body is, how far away was that?
30 feet?
And when Mr. Sultan asked you about the number of people who were in that vicinity or at the scene, how many did you indicate?
I think we agreed on 13, but I can't remember exact number.
Okay, but there were a number of people, is that right?
Yes.
And those individuals, as he asked you questions about in what perimeter did they get to the body, outside the ones you've already described that were in a closer point, did you see any of those other folks going near the body of Odin Lloyd?
That were under the canopy?
Yes, sir.
Only after the rain stopped.
And again, at that point, what were items that had already been identified, had they already been covered or were they uncovered?
The items that were identified were already covered.
Okay. I could have one moment, Norman. Thank you, sir. That's all the questions I have, Your Honor.
I'll try to be brief, Your Honor. Sir, you told us a few minutes ago, with respect to your interview of Mr. Swithers, that he said that he heard a lot of people walk and jog through that dirt trail. Is that your testimony?
I think he actually said he had knowledge of it, that people were going through there.
He
had
said,
he heard the other thing, but he
with respect to a lot of people walk and jog through that dirt trail, he just said that to you as something that he knew, correct?
I object.
Overruled.
Can you repeat that again, please?
With respect to the statement, a lot of people walk and jog through that dirt trail, he just stated that to you as something from his personal knowledge, correct?
I object, Your Honor, as to how he would know that was his personal knowledge.
That was not the question. The question was whether the person stated it as of personal knowledge as opposed to having said he heard it from someone. The objection, therefore, is overruled.
Could I just have the full question or the full statement? I think it's chopped, and I don't think that's the way.
You may answer the question.
Can you answer my question, sir?
He said a lot of people walk through that area, walk and jog through that area. I don't know if he had knowledge of it or not.
But that's what he said.
A lot of people walk or jog through that area, yeah.
Now, he said a few minutes ago that the fact that Mr. Lloyd, his body was, you said, in full rigor, right?
Yes.
And that suggests that he had been deceased for some period of time?
Yes, sir.
And am I correct that you told the jury that that fact was somehow inconsistent with his body being dropped there? Is that what you said?
That was one of the factors that would make that inconsistent, yes.
Well, didn't you just tell us, or respond to Mr. McCauley on redirect examination, that in your opinion, it was inconsistent, the fact that his body was in full rigor was inconsistent with the body having been dropped there. Isn't that what you said?
Among other factors, yes, I did.
All right. And in fact, isn't it true that somebody could have been killed elsewhere some period of time earlier, therefore been in full rigor, and then dropped at another location? That's
Yeah.
that could happen, right?
Yes.
Now, you told us that the first member of crime scene services on the scene was Sergeant Bennett, right?
Yes.
Okay. And I think that Mr. McCauley showed you Officer Zimmer's log to refresh your recollection, and you told us that Sergeant Bennett got there at 6:53, right?
Yes.
Okay. So that was a little less than an hour and a half after you had gotten there, right?
Yes.
Okay. And crime scene services, that's an agency of the state police, right?
Yes.
And they have a number of locations that they operate out of, right?
I'm not sure.
Okay. Well, in Bristol County, are you familiar with state police crime scene services in the town of Lakeville?
Yes.
Okay. So crime scene services, state police, is in Lakeville, right?
Yes.
Okay. And have you ever driven between North Attleboro and Lakeville?
Yes.
How long does it take to drive from Lakeville to North Attleboro?
30 minutes?
Doesn't take an hour and 23 minutes, does it?
No.
Now, I think you told us on redirect examination that Detective Rigor put two of the shell casings that he collected in the same evidence bag, right?
I think he did it, but I'm not 100% sure. I think 2 of them went in the same bag and the rest of them went in different bags.
Have you been trained in the collection of evidence at a crime scene, Captain Durenzo?
No.
So do you know, since you haven't been trained in it, do you have any knowledge as to whether or not it is appropriate to put 2 different shell casings collected at a crime scene in the same evidence bag? Do you know?
Objection.
Sustained.
I think you told us on redirect examination that you made some effort to cover the area of the shell casings with a tarp. Was that your testimony, sir?
I believe it was that the tarp just wouldn't reach that far.
So you couldn't do it, right?
No, we had already picked up the shell casings.
You already picked up the shell casings by the time the tarps arrived, right?
I believe so.
So you had no idea whether or not you could cover that area with a tarp because you didn't have the tarp yet, right?
Well, in particular, I'm talking about the ditch. We knew where the ditch was, so.
But you didn't know whether or not you would have sufficient canopies and tarps to cover that area and wait for crime scene services, did you?
I'm not sure what time they arrived. The tarps arrived.
But they arrived after you picked up the casings, right?
They were placed down after we picked up the casings, yes.
Mr. McCauley just showed you this exhibit, which is 53. See that?
Yes.
Okay. And he asked about some additional canopy other than the canopy that he erected over Mr. Lloyd's body, right?
Right.
And is that the one that's kind of peeking out from behind this hill right there?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And that was the canopy that a decision was made to erect that so that the officers could keep them out of the rain, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And that canopy could have been used to cover part of the crime scene instead, couldn't it?
Well, there was nothing left to cover, so
I'm sorry?
there was nothing left to cover.
Is it your testimony that this canopy over Mr. Lloyd's body and this tarp covered the entire crime scene? Is that your testimony, Captain Lorenzo?
Well, to cover the entire crime scene, we would need probably a circus tent, but the parts that we were concerned about, the evidence that we were concerned about were the two you just pointed out and the footwear, which were covered.
And your view was that there was nothing else they were covering?
At that time, no. No.
And you got these, the canopies and tarps from the fire department, right?
Yes.
Okay. Did it ever occur to you to ask them for a ruler?
No, no.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Mr. Town.
Thank you.
Your Honor, I would call Officer Kevin McKeon, please. McKeon, thank you.
Please remain standing, face the clerk, and raise your right hand.
Thomas, swear your testimony will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Have a seat, sir.
There you are. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
State your full name.
My first name is Kevin, last name is Mchuan, spelled M-C-K-E-O-N.
And do you work?
I do.
Where do you work?
I'm a police officer in the town of North Attleboro.
And how long have you been a police officer there?
I've been a patrolman for 15 years now.
Okay. I'd like to direct your attention back to June of 2013. Were you working as a patrolman at that time?
Yes,
And directing your attention to the 17th of that month, do you recall working that date?
I do.
What shift did you work?
I work both the day shift that day as well as the evening shift.
Okay. And how were you assigned during the course of the day and the evening?
During the daytime, I believe I was beat 3.
And I'm sorry, B3?
Beat 3, sorry, sir.
Oh, beat, B-E-A-T?
Beat, yes, sir.
Okay.
And the evening shift, which is 4 to 12, I was assigned to the Beat 2, or also referred to as Center, downtown.
Okay. Now, what, if you could just give us an idea of the day shift, when does that end?
4 o'clock.
Okay, so sometime after 4, did you switch sections of the city that you were patrolling?
I did, yes.
Now, sometime around 5:35 in the evening, did you receive a radio dispatch?
I did, yes.
And at that time, were you in marked or unmarked car?
A marked car,
And how about, were you in a uniform or plain clothes?
full uniform.
As a result of receiving that call, did you go somewhere?
I did, yes.
And where did you go?
344 John Deach Boulevard.
And just tell us, how did you travel at that time?
I increased my speed from the normal speed limit to in excess of the speed limit.
Okay, and did you use any apparatus on your vehicle?
Yes, I used my lights and siren.
Okay. And from where, when you first received that call, till you got to your destination, how much time did that take?
Approximately 2 minutes or under.
Okay. And when you say approximately 2 minutes, when you arrived at the location, where were you?
Where was I at the location?
Yes, like where did you travel to?
I traveled to 344 John Deach Boulevard.
And just, are you familiar with that location?
I am, yes.
And had you traveled in that area or ever covered that as part of a sector of the city?
Yes, I have.
Now, where did you go from there?
I pulled into the main entrance at 344 John Deach.
Okay. And when you pulled in that entrance, did you see any other vehicles at that time?
I did, yes.
And what other vehicle did you see?
I saw Captain Dorenzo's unmarked cruiser.
And did you see where he was located?
Not at that time.
Okay. In terms of his vehicle, where was that located?
It was located just off of an asphalt area onto a gravelly patch.
Okay. And did you take a position, did you ultimately park your vehicle somewhere in that vicinity?
I did, yes.
And just describe where you parked.
I parked next to the captain's vehicle.
Okay. Now, as you came in your vehicle, did you see anybody, any civilians in the area?
I did, yes.
And how many did you see?
2.
Okay. And after parking, just tell us what you did.
After I parked, I observed 2 civilians off to my left in a parking lot at Corliss Landing.
Okay. And when you say off to your left, from where you parked, what distance was that?
They were probably 25, 35 yards from where I was.
Okay. And are you familiar with any buildings in that area, Corliss Landing?
I am, yes.
Okay. And just in relation to where you parked and where the building was, where were they?
Where were the buildings?
I beg your pardon.
Sorry.
The civilians.
The civilians were off to my left. I was facing in a northerly direction.
Okay. Were they between where you parked and the building?
Yes.
Okay. Did you have any interaction with these civilians?
I did not.
Okay. At that time, did you go somewhere?
I did, yes.
And where did you go?
I walked in a northerly direction,
Okay.
down towards a gravel area.
And when you say down, was there a change in the elevation of the direction as you moved in that direction?
Yes.
Now, did you go, how far down ultimately did you go?
Approximately 75 yards.
And during the time that you were moving for that 75 yards, could you see, at some point, could you see something ahead of you?
Yes, I could.
Okay. And do you know how far down you had gone before you could?
Approximately maybe 10 yards or maybe 20 yards from where I had initially parked.
Okay. And at that time, just tell us, what could you see?
I could see Captain Dorenzo.
Okay. And did you see anything else in or, strike that, did you see anything else near where you saw Captain Dorenzo?
Yes.
And what else did you see?
I saw what appeared to be a male body on the ground.
Okay. And where was Captain Dorenzo when you saw this male body on the ground?
He was to the left of the body.
And could you see what he was doing at that time?
I believe he had just stood up at that point.
Okay. And did you continue to approach his location?
I did, yes.
And approximately how close did you get to where he was and where you observed this male body?
Approximately 3 feet.
Okay. Did you make your own observations of this body?
I did, yes.
And as a result of your presence there, just yes or no, did you have some conversation with Captain Dorenzo?
Yes.
And as a result of that conversation, did you do anything else?
Yes.
What did you do?
I contacted the detectives over my radio.
Okay. And after you contacted the detectives over your radio, and do you recall which detectives you actually contacted?
I requested that a detective respond through dispatch.
Okay. Did you later have any radio contact with any of the detectives?
No, I did not.
Okay. Shortly after you made that radio transmission, did you see anybody from the detective unit?
Yes, I did.
And who did you see?
Detective Daniel Origi.
And where did you see him?
He was coming down towards our location.
Okay. After making that radio call near where the body and Captain Dorenzo were, what did you do from there?
From there, I started back towards my cruiser.
Okay. And when you say you started back from your cruiser, what direction did you, or how did you travel?
I traveled in a southerly direction back towards my cruiser.
And Sir, I'm just going to show you a photograph that's previously been marked as exhibit number 3C. just ask you if you recognize the scene portrayed here.
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize that to be?
That's the area in which the body was located.
Okay. And as you began to approach the body, did you see any disturbance of the surface area as you approached?
Yes, I did.
Okay, and just describe that if you would.
It appeared to be tire tracks.
Your Honor, if I could use the overhead. So I'm just going to put this on the overhead. This will be to your left now. Okay, can you see that?
Yes.
Okay. Now, just if you would point, and I'll try and follow your finger as to where you observed the tire tracks, or what appear to be tire tracks.
Right here?
You're starting here?
Correct.
Okay,
And following along here.
following them, okay. And as a result, when you first saw them, did you, in terms of the course that you were traveling when you were going to the body, did you go a certain direction?
When I first went to the body, yes, I stayed to the left of the tracks.
And when you approached the body, tell us how you did that.
I walked up, again, to the left of the tire tracks and walked right up to this area.
Okay, and I'm just going to, if you could just put your finger there again. And show us,
Sorry.
So I can.
Right here.
Okay, you sort of, is that a fair representation where my pen is?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And how long would you say you were along the body of this man?
Minute and a half.
And as a result of that, you indicated you then went away from the body.
Correct.
And if you just show us on the photo what direction, how you traveled away from.
I traveled from here
Okay,
and in this path.
and you're indicating,
Correct.
okay. Did you ever walk down in the area below this man's feet?
I did not, no.
And outside of that minute and a half, were you in that area again?
I never returned toward the body, no.
And so, once you moved away from the body, where did you go?
I met another officer
And where did you meet that other officer?
about halfway between where I had parked my cruiser and where the body was.
Okay, and who was that other officer?
Officer Jonathan Grimm.
Okay. And just yes or no, did you have a conversation with him?
Yes.
And as a result of that, what did you do?
I cordoned off the area with some yellow crime scene tape.
Okay. And when you say you cordoned it off, how did you do that?
We blocked what was essentially a roadway from where I parked my cruiser to the body. About halfway between, we pulled tape right across the road.
Okay. And then after that was cordoned off, did you take a position near that area?
Not necessarily near it, but above it, I did, yes.
Okay. So this, this tape has now been pulled across this area?
Yes.
Okay. And after you've done that, where do you go?
I proceeded just south of my cruiser.
Okay. So are you moving from the tape, are you moving towards the body or away from the body?
Away from the body.
And how far do you go?
I go up past my cruiser, so from that point, maybe another 50 yards.
Okay. And are you familiar with the surface areas in those areas, like where it went from pavement to gravel?
Yes.
Just using that to orient your position, where in relation to the gravel, the pavement, were you?
I was on a fully paved area in the main entrance of Corliss Landing.
Okay, and what did you do at that location?
I was the initial checkpoint from that point on.
Okay, and when you say initial checkpoint, just describe what were your duties?
My duties were to divert any civilians that might have come as witnesses, and also to make initial contact with any officers or troopers or any representatives of the court.
Okay. And over the next, how long did you remain there?
I did not leave there till 11:30 at night.
So did you have any interactions with different personnel that was coming to the scene?
I did, yes.
And was there some interaction you'd have to assure their credentials?
Correct.
And just tell us how you do that.
I would ask to see some identification.
Okay. And then individuals who showed identification, were they permitted then to proceed into beyond your area?
Correct.
And then further down from where you were, could you see whether anyone was doing anything by the yellow tape that you had strung across that area?
I did, yes.
Okay. Who was doing that?
Officer Edward Zimmer.
And what was he doing?
He was keeping a log of everybody that came in and out of the crime scene.
Okay. And you indicated, what time did you ultimately clear that night?
I believe it was 11:35.
And after you cleared, was anybody remaining at the scene?
Yes.
Who, if you know, remained at the scene?
I'm not sure. I know it was another officer in uniform with a fully marked cruiser.
Okay. And what was their purpose in remaining at the scene?
To remain the protection or integrity of the crime scene.
And when you say the protection or integrity of the crime scene, how long was that preserved by having a police officer at the scene?
I believe for at least a week's time.
Okay.
We're going to stop at this point a few minutes early before lunch recess. I need to try to finalize the arrangements for the view tomorrow before lunchtime, so we'll do that at this time. We'll resume at 2 p.m. Please keep your minds suspended. Don't discuss the case among yourselves or with anyone else. Thank you.
Would all rise for the jury?